Hello, everybody. This is Arun Ramnath. Given that we have a very short time and a very vast topic to be covered, I hope I'm able to do justice to time and cover at least the major aspects that come to my mind when it comes to an holistic IFRS compliance perspective. So, firstly, the most important thing that comes to my mind at this point in time, especially when the impact of COVID is felt, is that most of the banks are going to face this in terms of the impairments. And the second and the most relevant to our discussion today is the impairment of financial assets. One is the business model test, and the other is the contractual cash flow test. There is a whole lot that goes into the computation of ECL, and there are these certain components of computation like probability of default and exposure at default that would need to be revisited during these unprecedented times of COVID-19. What I'm trying to highlight here is it's not just the IFRS 9 that needs to be looked at in isolation. Another example of interlinkage that comes to my mind is the IFRS 9 requires the banks to assess whether there has been a significant increase in credit risk. So now we are already started seeing that there are a lot of interlinkages. Now, when it comes to IFRS 13 fair valuation, so for example, if we were to consider the discounted cash flow model, the assumption based on which the cash flows are arrived at would have undergone some change. And as a result of this COVID pandemic, not only these cash flows, but also the weighted average cost of capital could have possibly undergone a change. And why would the WACC have undergone a change? Maybe because the risk rating would have got impacted as a result of discount, as a result of which the discount rates are also getting impacted. So if you see that we have to have a holistic view when it comes to any computations that are there under the IFRS perspective. I hope I'm able to bring out these interlinkages and provide a holistic view. IFRS 9 vis-a-vis the erstwhile IAS 39. So the moment we say expected, we mean that it is forward-looking. We would realize that it tends to kind of lead the economic cycle. IFRS, however, prescribes that this 12-month provision should be increased to what is known as the lifetime credit loss, as and when there is a significant increase in credit risk. Further, the bank will also need to update their macroeconomic factors or forecasts, which would be needed to update the downturn scenario. Because if you were to look at a moratorium or a payment holiday in a pre-COVID situation, it would essentially indicate some kind of a financial difficulty or distress for the borrower. And then we would possibly have moved these exposures to stage 2 or stage 3. This is a large topic in itself, and it has gained a lot of significance in the post-COVID situation. So just to reiterate what I had stated under the staging, that under IFRS 9, whenever any loans and advances are originated, they would carry an ECL provisioning from the very first day. And this is typically a 12-month expected loss provision. And only if there is a significant increase in credit risk, the loan moves to stage 2 or stage 3. And the bank needs to increase the amount of loan loss provisioning up to a lifetime credit loss, expected credit loss. So now what is the significant increase in credit risk, and why would it be such a key factor in implementing this IFRS 9 standard? So it is important for each one of us to note that SICR is nowhere defined in the standard. So it is just a judgment that the banks would require to make when they are implementing this model. And when they are making this judgment, they should bear in mind that the judgment that they are making could significantly impact the amount of impairment losses that they are going to book. These behavioral models, one needs to bear in mind, is essentially doing an analysis on the past. But what we always want to have is forward-looking indicators.